All right, peace and blessings, family. Happy Thursday. Back in here, who's on these pages? Today, we're going to talk to Brother Kwasi, and he's going to tell us about his work, and I'm very excited. So I have to be honest, you're like the first man that I interviewed in months, because every week I do a Facebook Live with my brother Barry. But normally when I do these one-on-one interviews, it's usually with a lot of women and youngsters. And so I'm really excited to hear about your work and what it is that you do and learn some of this ancient science, because that's what it feels like to me. So just if you could, Kwasi, could you give me a little bit of your background, where you're from, where did you grow up at, where did you come of age at? Tell us who you are.
Okay, so first of all, I appreciate you for, giving the opportunity to communicate on your platform. I've seen some of the interviews you've been doing, so I really appreciate the work you're doing. We really need to shed light on ancestral culture, relating as it, connects to nation building and so forth. So that's what we're about. So basically, well, first and foremost, my name is Ojirafo Kwasi Akan. Many people call me Kwasi. Some people call me Ojirafo. So what we have, people have seen our website. We see the Akonguasua page on the website, as people see on the screen here. That is our institution. Much of the work that we're doing right now is online, of course, because of what's going on. But I'm from Chicago originally. Just back in 2009, I moved to DC, but I'm from Chicago. The tradition that we talk about and we're focused on with regard to specifically us is the Hoodoo tradition, which, as we've shown in our books and publications, is the Akan tradition that's preserved in the blood circles of our people in North America. So when we talk about Akan ancestral religion, it's like, people are kind of familiar with the Yoruba tradition to a certain extent, as it has crossed the waters and exists in, the Western Hemisphere. Some people are familiar to a certain extent with Vodou, which is the Ewe and Bone tradition. Some people are not as aware of the Akan tradition, but Akan people, of course, in Ghana and Ivory Coast. It's about 20+ million Akan people between Ghana and Ivory Coast, one of the largest ethnic groups. So there are many of our people taken from the Akan ethnic group and forced into the Western Hemisphere, just like there were many Yoruba people forced into the Western Hemisphere, Igbo, Bakongo, Mindi-speaking people and so forth. So when we were forced into this region, all of us maintained our ancestral religious practices. Right. And specifically for us in North America, sometimes we're given this impression that we did not preserve our traditions. So we have to go to other places to, reconstitute our culture. But actually, we preserved our traditions, we preserved the priesthoods and priestesses, we preserved language and so forth. So for example, the Akan term Undu in the Akongo dialect means medicine from roots, trees, and plant life. And Undu also means to become heavy with the spirit through spirit possession, spirit communication. So Akan ancestral religion brought in the blood circles of our people here. We've maintained that tradition, and we call the Akan religion Hoodoo, which is the Akan term Undu. The term mojo and jackball and haint spirit and, Kanche and so forth, all of these terms are Akan terms. So when you hear about mojo, that comes from the Akan term moja. When you hear about the jackball used in Hoodoo for ritual medicine, that comes from the Ja in Akan tradition. When you hear the term haint spirit in the South, that comes from the Akan term hinti. When you hear the term Kanche, which means to utter incantations to bring forth the spirits, that's the Akan term that people mistranslate as conjure, but it's Kanche from the Akan language. So the Gofa doctor and the Gofa dust comes from the Komfo man and Komfo woman, which is the Okomfo, the priest and priestess. So all of the Akan terms remain, all of the ritual ramifications and implications for those definitions we preserve in the blood circles. It's the same with the Yoruba tradition. The term juju means to cast or throw in Yoruba. Ju means to cast or throw, so the reduplication is juju. So when Yoruba people were forced over here, they continue the Yoruba tradition. It's the juju tradition. So if someone said, I'm a juju man or juju woman, they were saying, I'm a Yoruba man, I'm a Yoruba woman. If they said, I'm a hoodoo man or hoodoo woman, they were saying, I'm an Akan man and Akan woman. If they said, I'm a Wanga man or Wanga woman and cast the Wanga, they were saying, I'm Ovambo. We preserved our ethnic groups through our ritual languages, and we preserved priesthoods and priestesses the entire time. So all we have to do is reconstitute those traditions from our blood circles. Now we can connect with other people on the continent and different places, as you know, with regard to diplomatic relations. But as far as our ancestral religious traditions that we inherited intergenerationally, we never lost that. So we need to reconstitute that, just like everybody else did. We did the same thing.
Right on. Now you got me smiling over here because I love the way you said it was never broken. And even though some of us feel like we may have to search and find them because of struggle, you know, some may hide some things from other people, you know, right. You know what they are. And I kind of always do that in my spirit. You said blood circles. What is a blood circle?
So specifically, like sometimes we'll say, you know, bloodline and so forth. We tend to think of, you know, instead of a linear fashion, a circular fashion. So your matriclans and your patriclans. You can say your matriclan bloodline or your patriclan bloodline, but we talk about matriclan blood circle. Your ancestresses and ancestors from the matriclan, and your ancestresses and ancestors from the patriclan. So all of us have, you know, we incarnate through our blood circles. So for us, if you were a Yoruba woman living in, you know, the Oyo Empire and so forth, and you were forced into North America 300 years ago, and you were forced to breed and so forth, and you had children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and so forth, at some point you transition, and you know, you're an ancestress watching your great-grandchildren grow up in Alabama and Mississippi, or escaping from enslavement, killing crackers, and you know, overthrowing the enemy and establishing independent Black towns in the early 1900s, and you know, going through the entire process. And every generation, you know, some of them who still pay attention, they will listen to you, the ancestress, guiding them along the way for the next, you know, couple of 100 years. But at some point, your great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter may grow up in, you know, Chicago and get married. And when it's time for her to bring an ancestral spirit back into the world with her husband, when they go through that process, they draw your spirit back into the world. And you're the same Yoruba ancestress that lived in Oyo 250 years ago, was forced over here. You have now returned and you're in the world once again. So even though there was blood mixture over the past couple of 100 years because of, you know, different things happening on plantations, the blood may be mixed, but the soul is not. So you're the exact same Yoruba ancestral spirit who has returned. You may be lighter brown, but you're the same person. You're lighter brown because of what happened in the blood circles. But that's just a scar. That's a scar that, you know, a scar is evidence that violence took place. When we have a light brown skin, that's just evidence that violence took place in the ancestral blood circle over the past couple 100 years. But a scar is also evidence that melanin healed the wound. And since we're still brown, we still won that physiological battle, or else we'll be melanin recessive. So we may have a light brown covering. The last time you were here, you may have been, you know, dark brown. This time we're a little bit lighter brown. That's just a war scar, but we're still the same spirit. So we still have the same tradition. You can't lose a tradition if you can communicate with your ancestresses and ancestors. So if people are saying they lost a tradition, then they're not really communicating with their ancestresses and ancestors. Because if you are, they still possess, they still communicate, they'll possess and walk over to a plant, show you how to procure the medicine, walk over to some mineral life, show you how to procure the medicine, show you how to engage in ritual song, ritual dance, and so forth. Everything that was part of the tradition, they can show you that through spirit possession, and you can incorporate that in the fabric of your tradition and reconstitute it directly from the ancestral ancestors. So, you know, the work that we do, we have 31 books out to date. We do, you know, online institution teaching courses on ancestral religion and culture and linguistics and cosmology and things like that. So we deal with that kind of information.
So you said a Khan. You mean like a Khan from Ghana?
Right.
Okay. So what is the difference? I mean, because we're going to go into it. What is the difference between, say, a Khan and Dahomey and Benin and Dogo? Like, because they all have spiritual practices as well. Or are they somewhat the same people? Or I'm not really sure how that works. Because, yeah.
Okay. So basically, and especially in that cluster with regard to West and Central Africa, or West and Central Africa, we're more closely related genetically. If you look at, for example, they did a test, a genetic study on the mummy of Ramesses III, so-called Ramses III, and so forth. And the Y chromosomal haplogroup that they found in Ramesses III was the E1B1A haplogroup. And you'll find that that E1B1A haplogroup crosses into West and Central Africa, especially in the western portion. It clusters at over 80+%. It's it clusters greatly in the region where most of our people are from. And then about 50 to 75% is estimated of Black people in North America have the same Y chromosomal haplogroup. So when you trace the migration of that genetic, haplogroup from East Africa to the western part of the continent, and then into North America, genetically, you can also trace our migration and then forced migration that follows the same trajectory exactly. So we're related genetically, we're related linguistically. When you look at the Yoruba language and the Ewe language and the Akan language and the many languages and so forth, they're closely related. And linguists will sometimes group them together as the Kwa languages, as a subgroup and so forth, but they're closely related, and the ritual practices are closely related. Now, all over the continent where we exist in the world, we have the same basic structure. Cosmologically, we just speak, different languages. We have certain different expressions. Our ritual dances may be slightly different, certain colors that we wear, or ritual, song or chants and so forth, and the sculptures. They're based on our expression where we live. If you're living in the riverine area, your motifs are going to be different than if you live in a savanna or a forest belt, or if you live in the desert and so forth. Your clothing is going to be different. The ritual colors you use are going to be slightly different. The movements are going to be slightly different. If you're living in the desert, you're going to move a little bit different than if you're living in, the forest where the, Twa people are in the forest. And some of the ritual foods that you use are based on the environment and so forth, the medicines and so forth. But the same structure of the great mother and great father who function together as a supreme being, the forces in nature, which are the deities. We would say the supreme being is the great mother and great father. That's like the great divine body, akin to your body. And then your body has children, which are the organs. They are the smaller bodies within the greater body, and they regulate order in the body. And the deities, the Orisha, as they're called in Yoruba, they're called Abosom and Akan, they're called Vodou and Ewe and Fon. These are the forces in nature. And these are the organs within the great divine body of the supreme being, and they regulate order and creation. And then the organs give birth to cells, and that's plant life, animal life, mineral life, and us, African human life. And we are the cells within the organ, within the great body. So if your liver cell serves their parent deity, the liver deity, and live in harmony with those liver functions, they're also serving the supreme being, the great body, you, at the same time. If your pancreas cells serve their parent deity, the pancreas, then they're serving you, the great being, at the same time. And us as Black people, we're cells within the great divine body of the supreme being, but we're children of a specific organ. A certain deity governs our head, a certain Orisha or Abosom or Vodou governs us. So we carry that energy into the great divine body, and we do it harmoniously, then we're serving the great divine body at the same time. If we get off track and create some disorder, we engage the ritual process to realign ourselves with order and eradicate the disorder. And ancestral religion is about incorporating divine law and restoring divine balance so we can continue to execute the function in the great divine body that we were crafted to create. So everybody has the same structure. They just have different, in Ewe and Vodou, for example, the great mother's Mawu, the great father's Lisa, the deities are the Vodou, and the ancestral spirits are Kuvito or Ulito. In Yoruba, it's in reality, it's Olorun and Olokun. When you look at the earlier cosmology, you see them as the great mother and great father. Olorun, the great father, Olokun, the great mother. The Orisha are the, children of the great mother and great father, the deities, the forces in nature. And the ancestresses and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated are the Egungun. And in Akan, Nyame is the great father, Nyame was the great mother. The Abosom are the deities. the Nananoman Samanfo, or the ancestral spirits who are spiritually cultivated. So that same structure exists everywhere Black people exist. And so we live in harmony with that structure.
Okay, so hold on. I'm getting some comments in the room that they're saying they're having a hard time hearing you.
Okay.
So it could be your connection to your internet, maybe. I don't know. What are you using? Is it the camera on your laptop? Is it your phone? Is it your webcam?
It's the webcam.
Webcam. Okay, I don't know what that is. Because I know sometimes you move slow and then you speed up and then you be okay. So that's why I'm like,
okay.
But people are still hanging in there. But I'm just trying to see. I wonder what that is that's making you move so slow.
Is it the videos moving slow, or?
Yeah, your video. My video is clear, but because I'm looking on another computer here on the side. That's how I talk to people. But this way here, like you sometimes move a little slow, and then sometimes you're regular. So I'm like, I don't know what that is. How close are you to your camera?
Just like a foot or so.
Okay.
You want me to back up?
About cameras and how they move, or why is it make it could. So on your camera, I don't know if you could do this. So on your webcam, does it give you like a speed on your webcam?
Let me see.
See if it'll let you look at the speed. Because sometimes on the webcam, I have a webcam here, it gives me an option of being at 320, 480, and then 720 and 1080 or something like that.
Yeah, I have 360, 480, and 720.
Go to 720. Let's see what happens. Just choose it. Because there's something about the speed.
Okay.
Let's see. It looks like you're moving. Yeah, you haven't frozen yet, so I think you may be okay.
That might be it. Okay.
Yep, I think you're good. All right, y'all. Thank you, Sequestra. Okay. So you may have to back up a little bit because you started breaking down, because I'm trying to follow you when you talk about, like, and I like the way you reference the Yoruba, so I can kind of see, oh, that's that. That's, same thing when I'm in Catholicism, the same thing. But can you back up a little bit and talk about that a little bit, the way you just did?
Okay, so basically we have the same superstructure. No matter where we exist, anywhere in the world, it's always the Great Mother and the Great Father, the Supreme Being, who function together as one unit. Just like the relationship of a Black man and Black woman functioning together as two halves of a whole in order to bring forward a child that, balanced fusion. So the Great Mother and Great Father is the Great Mother, Great Father functioning together as a unit. Then we can say that's the Supreme Being, but two entities, two halves of a whole.
Okay, so, hold right there. Two halves of a whole. So now you're breaking up again.
Is it sound, or is it the video?
It's sound, because your sound sounds like you'll start talking and then it just start like being choppy. So that's why I was like,
okay,
that's what you skip. And you skip. You know what I mean? Like you literally skip. Like your hand will be like this, and then when you move, it take a minute, then your hand will be down. So it don't go like that. You know what I'm saying? It's weird. So I don't know if that's connected to the sound. That's why I'm thinking maybe it's connection, because it's the way that it's choppy, not just with sound, but also with image.
You want me? I could call in. You want me to call in?
Yeah. Well, that should. Okay. So you said you went to, what number did you go to on your camera?
It went. I put it on the 720.
Go down one. I'm so determined. I'm so determined to make this work. It's like, this is technology. No, so not.
Right.
Let's see. All right, we're not going. Yep, see, it's still jumping. When you said calling, you mean from your phone?
Yeah, when you send me the link, it had a call-in option.
Yeah, but I want people to see you, though. I want them to make that link. So I don't know. Okay, I just think we should keep trying. Let's see what's going on.
Or I could use my phone. You want me to use the phone as the camera? I mean, I could try to do it that way.
Yeah, see if you could link on through your phone. Because what kind of phone do you have?
It's an Android.
Yeah, let's just see. Maybe because it may have something more, because I don't know what kind of computer you have. I mean, like the camera, Mine go up to like 1,008. I'm looking. I have another camera over here when I'm using the webcam. Right now, I'm on the Mac computer, or whatever. It's a I computer or whatever. So that's different. It's just a straight desktop. But we could see, because you have such great information. You want to
Okay,
try
yeah, I'll try to.
on your phone?
Okay, yeah, let me grab that.
Yep. Okay, y'all. This brother has great information. We can see, stick with it. Yeah, you know I'm gonna do that, Keon. Happy belated birthday. This brother got awesome information, and so you know me, I'm always down for getting the great information that I know we need, and he's breaking it down. And what I really like too is that he's talking about the ancestral lineage that most of us think we have lost, but really we have not lost it. And he's kind of breaking that down and helping us to understand what that really looks like. To me, that's super important. So I'm just really excited. So let's see what we got here. Let's see. You're gonna go to your messages and then sign on through your phone?
Yes, I'm gonna close this one out and then I'm gonna sign on.
All right, no worries. Just take yourself out of here and I'll be right here waiting.
Okay.
All right, family. So hang with us. The brother gonna sign right back in. This brother is, I kind of sounded because I said right back in. This brother is Kwesi, and he is breaking down some things. I'm just really loving what he has to offer. In the comments, in the comments, I am sharing the all his information, his websites, where you can get his books. Just great reading. And since we're in this time, see again, I might have to call this the special quarantine time, or you could get some of these books or take some of his classes, which will be very important for us to learn, to rediscover who we are. And I think sometimes we kind of lose that a little bit. We don't always get the opportunity to get this kind of information so that we can grow and be directly connected to our ancestral lineage. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm really, really feeling the whole ancestral lineage thing, and that we need to activate that now. Also, before you all came on, he talked about this, and that was very eye-opening for me. And he talked about, because we sometimes get confused with, here we go. Okay, brother, hold on. I'm bringing him in, y'all. I'm bringing him in. Okay.
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 So
that sounds good. You look good.
Okay. So
okay.
It's not chopping. It's good.
Nope, it's still good.
Okay, cool.
Good. And people are waiting. So it's like, yeah, brother got good information. I'm reading the comments in the room and on Facebook. So they just like, brother got good information. So they waiting. They like, yeah, take care of that. Okay.
Okay.
So go right ahead, brother.
Okay. So basically, we're saying the the superstructure is the great mother and great father working together as one divine unit as a supreme being. And then just like your physical body as a microcosm of the macrocosm, your physical body is a great structure. It gives birth to smaller bodies, which are the organs that regulate order within the body. And then the organs give birth to even smaller bodies, which are the organelles, which are the cells. And those cells, for us, that's plant life, animal life, mineral life, and Afurakani, or African Black human life. So the organs within the great divine body, the children of the great divine body, are the deities, because the deities are spirit forces that animate the suns, the moons, the planets, the black substance of space, oceans, rivers, the core of earth, the atmosphere, the lower mantle, upper mantle, everything. And, so they regulate order within creation. There's a regulatory order that's manifest in creation. But then they give birth to cells, children, which are plant life, animal life, mineral life, and us. And specifically us, Afurakani, the African Black people. So we're the cells. The cells are children of the organs. Like we were saying, the pancreas cells, they serve pancreas functions in the body. When they serve their parent deity, the pancreas, they serve you, the liver cells serve their parent deity, the liver. When they execute liver functions and support liver functions within their parent deity, they're serving the great body of you at the same time. And we as cells within the great divine body of the Supreme Being, when we execute our specific function that we were designed for creation, then we're serving great being at the same time. We're the divinity that the divine immune system in the great by Akan, he's called Bena. In Yoruba, he's called Ogun, governing iron and war and so forth. He's the immune system within the great divine body. In Vodou, he's called Ogu. He's Ogun in Yoruba. He's Bena in Akan and so forth. If you're a child of Bena in Akan, you're called Kwa Bena. If you know somebody named Kwa Bena, that means they were born on Benada, the day of the deity Bena, and they're a servant of the divinity Bena. That's who governs their crop, their head, their spiritual head. Just like somebody being born as a child of Ogun in Yoruba. And even the term Gu in Akan means to cast metal. So once again, linguistically, we have the same title. So if you're a child of Bena, that means you carry that immune system function into the human sphere. So you're naturally inclined towards immune system activities. Your martial arts, policing functions, military functions, things like that. You're naturally inclined towards that because you have that specific energy complex, because you're a child of that divinity. That's the kind of energy you bring to the human sphere. If you're a child of another divinity who's a healing divinity, like the divinity Amin Men and so forth, you're born on Saturday, somebody named Kwame and so forth, they deal with that fertility, agricultural function. It's the same divinity as Orisha Oko in Yoruba. That's the divinity Amin Men in Akan. So you're naturally inclined towards that kind of activity. If somebody named Afua, like Afua or Ifia, that means they're born on Fida or Friday, they're a child of the divinity Afi. She's called Oshun in Yoruba. They're naturally inclined towards that fusion of complementary opposites, central energy that, deals with the fusion of complementary opposites, art, music, sensuality, creativity, innovation, that kind of thing. So you're naturally inclined towards those kinds of activities because you carry that energy into the world. So we have a specific function to execute in the great divine body, just like every cell has a specific function to execute within you. And when they do that, everything's fine. If we make mistakes, then we have in place a system to get back on track. And the system is ancestral religion. It's the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. So we engage the ritual process, incorporate what we need to learn to live in harmony with order, and then restore balance by eradicating the disorder so we can get back on track. So ritual song, ritual dance, ritual incantation, ritual chant, all these different things help us to incorporate divine law, restore order, so we can get back on track with our function in creation.
How can we use that to help Black folks in America to get back to that original state? Because it seems like there's always a battle to get back to what we were doing before we were interrupted and brought here in the enslavement process, those who came through the enslavement door. How could this tradition help us, restore, reconnect, reactivate that part in us?
Well, first we giving a proper definition of what the tradition is and how it's inherited through the blood circle. We don't go and choose an ancestral religious practice. It's inborn within us. Right. Our culture is inborn, it's not chosen. The culture of a lion or a lion and naturally inclined to operate in, the way they take in protein is different than the way a fish takes in protein. Fish needs water, a lion and lioness need water. They both instinctively know that. But the lion is structured in a certain fashion that they're going to take in water according to their nature. And a fish is going to take in water according to their nature. If a lion said, well, I'm just part of the animal kingdom, I don't want to be put in any kind of box, I'm just going to be whoever I want to be, and they start trying to take in water the same way a fish does, they're going to drown because they're structured and designed to execute their function in a specific manner. And they're born into it. And we're born into the culture as well. We have natural inclinations to specific ritual practices, specific animal totems and so forth, specific ritual colors. And when we follow those natural inclinations, you'll find that when you look on the continent, you'll find that, well, Akan people have a whole, complex of culture that you naturally are instinctively engaged in because that's the culture you come from. Or the Yoruba people have a specific approach to ritual song, ritual dance, ritual colors, animal totems. Those inclinations that you have are manifest through your natural, adherence to that complex, even if you've never visited the country, because we're born into that. Now, what's going on right now is, when you talked about how we can incorporate it, because of the shutdown and so forth, people are being forced to revisit culture without even thinking about it. Because now they're seeking out all of the holistic physicians, all of the people who are engaged in spirituality, the people who seem to be unbothered by the crisis and so forth, because we have a focus, we're in alignment with the divinity that governs the head. So we're still focused and engaged in, what we need to be engaged in without being, controlled by crisis. And even just the natural medicine itself, people are revisiting and saying, well, what do I need to do for this? Or what do I need to do for that? Or how are you able to maintain emotionally and spiritually and being focused and balanced and not being distracted and so forth? That's all born of the expression of culture. The whole notion of root work and so forth, even holistic medicine and alternative medicine and all of that, that comes from our people bringing root work and so forth, natural medicine and so forth, and everything else during the enslavement era. The whites and offspring didn't have the capacity to heal with the roots, herbs, and so forth. They had to learn about that from our people. And then later on, they repackaged it as alternative medicine, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Now people, when they get accurate information, they realize that these things are born of us. The ancestral religious practice is the root, and everything is born from that culture. So when they talk about Black people having culture and they just think about jazz and dancing and stuff like that, the culture is the ancestral religious practice. The manifestation of juking and jazz and blues and natural medicine and approaches to engineering and approaches to architecture and so forth, that's all born of our cosmology, rooted in our ancestral religious traditions, the hoodoo tradition, juju tradition, voodoo tradition, wanga tradition, and so forth. So when we properly define the traditions, then people will see, first of all, it's inborn, so they have it inborn with them. All they have to do is access it. But they can see the value of it, even just starting from the health conscious aspect of it right now. People are looking for, what is your dietary practice? Why are you faring better than other people? What is your, medicinal practice? Why are you faring better than other people at this particular time? Why are you not controlled negatively by crisis emotionally and mentally? Why are you not going through clinical depression and getting on medicines and so forth? It's all born of the tradition.
Sister Sequestra is asking you, how did you get introduced to this practice?
So one hand, right. So the traditions end up migrating. As a matter of fact, we released a film last year called Amado Kafua de Bisa, African American Ancestral Divination, and we showcase 5, myself included, but then there are 4 other sisters in the film. One of them is Voodoo Queen Kalinda Laveau. She's in New Orleans. One of them is Wabet Seshat Tudan Kwajet. She's in Florida. Another one is Rakik Kajara Niyadne Behet. She has the Raseki system. She's in Georgia. And then we have Mama Mawusi Ashakir. She's in Ohio. She's in Cincinnati. So all 5 of us, we're talking about the way that our blood circles maintain divinatory practices, ritual divination through our blood circles throughout this entire process, and how we preserve these practices and still engage in divination to this day. So we migrated. So of course we were in the South, but then of course the Great Migration North, millions of our people left the South and went up north into Detroit and Chicago and all these various industrial centers and so forth, and carried the traditions with us. And that's part of my family's, legacy of leaving the South in the 50s and the 60s and so forth, Mississippi and Alabama, moving up to Chicago, and continuing that process. So being introduced in that context, through family, but then also engaging the study. So when we look on our website, and we published 31 books to date. We have some more coming out this year, and they're dealing with ancestral religion and culture and cosmology and ritual practice and trustery and everything else, language and so forth. We start investigating. Because of course, when you mention religion, spirituality, and so forth, because we've been so conditioned negatively, we have an automatic, repulsion to a certain extent if it's not linked to one of the fake religions. So the first thing you have to do is deal with some trustery, some true history. So one of our publications, the Kuku Tumtum, the Ancestral Jurisdiction, we show an ancient Kemet, which the whites and offspring call Egypt. We show how when Europeans invaded Kemet, we had our culture, we had our ancestral religious practices. We migrated away from Kemet, as well as Khanit, which is Nubia, and migrated west and central and south. We continued those same practices. And those practices are the Yoruba tradition, Akan tradition, Igbo tradition, and so forth, different expressions of that same ancestral religious practice, which ended up in North America as hoodoo and juju and voodoo and so forth. So, but when Europeans invaded a couple of thousand years ago, the Greeks and the Romans and so forth, they came in contact with ancestral religion. They sought to corrupt it because they wanted to engage in forms of control. It took them hundreds of years to corrupt different aspects of the tradition, first creating little white Greek statues and trying to say that's Osar and Oset, Osiris and Isis and all that nonsense, creating these little white gay statues and everything, and trying to corrupt the tradition. But they also began to take titles and functions from the deities and the cosmology and add it to their little white statues and try to make our people believe that these little characters were real. So when we talk about, in our book, we show how Jesus or Yeshua is a fictional character. Muhammad is a fictional character. Moses, Aaron, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Buddha, Brahman, Allah, Yahweh, fictional characters. They were not black, they were not white, fictional cartoon characters. And we show specifically the deities from ancient Kemet and the cosmology from the papyri and the text, pyramid text, coffin text, how they took fragments of the cosmology of specific divinities and corrupted the fragments and manufactured these characters. So for example, we know about the Nile River. It's called the Hapi River and so forth. Hap, Met is the northern Nile. Met means north. Hapi is the river, that's the river divinity. So Hap Met is Hapi of the north. And you'll see him as a deity and he's wearing the plant of the north. And then you have Hap, which means Hap of the south. Reset means south. So you have the northern branch of the river, the southern branch of the river. Hap Met, or Hap of the north, that's the northern Hapi, and you'll see him with the plants on his head that represent the northern part of the country. The term for water in Kemet is Mu, just like it's Omi in Yoruba. Mu in ancient Kemet means water. So Mu, Hap Met is the waters, Mu of Hap Met, the northern Nile. That's the spirit animating the northern Nile. Muhammad was corrupted into Muhammad. And they said it was a little white Arab who invaded and took over. There was no Muhammad. Muhammad is the spirit that animates the northern Nile River. He's animating the river now. He was animating the river back then. But they tried to take that, divinity and manufacture a character, place him in a historical period, and make him a white Arab to try to take the people away from ancestral religion. The same is true of Buddha. The same is true of Jesus, Yeshua, Yahawashah, whatever. This fictional character. He did not exist. There was not a black Jesus. There was not a white one. So we show Khensu, Neferhotep-Eru. Khensu is one of the divinities. They corrupted Khensu into Jesus and Yeshua and manufactured the Jesus character. Same with Moses, Aaron, David, Solomon. Every character you find in the Bible, Quran, Talmud, Bhagavad Gita, in India and so forth, the Dhammapadas in Buddhism, Jainism, same thing. So when we deal with actual trustery, and we show exactly how they manufactured these characters, then we get the fake religions out of the way. And now people can focus on their own ancestrally inherited traditions because they don't have a block thinking that they're making one of these fictional deities mad when they get involved in their ancestral religion. They won't no longer believe it's some demon worship and all that kind of nonsense. They know it's the real thing.
Right on, right on. So how did you get to it though?
Oh, your sound is, you're muted.
Uh-oh, sorry, hold on. No, I'm not muted. I'm not muted.
Oh, let Let me see.
Did you mute me?
Can you hear my sound?
I can hear you perfectly. You're good.
Okay, let me see. I didn't touch it, but I can't hear you speaking, but
So Sequestra was asking, can you see anything that looks like a chat on your page? Oh, you can't even hear me. Nothing? Because I can hear you perfectly. Yeah.
nope, I don't hear anything.
Is your sound
I
up?
can see you clearly. I just can't hear anything.
Is your sound up? Is your sound up? Wow.
And I heard you earlier, but I just can't hear anything now.
Yeah. Is your sound up on your phone? Is your sound up on your phone?
I turned up the volume. Yeah, I turned up the volume on my phone, but let's see. Okay, but you can hear me. I just can't hear you.
Yep, I can hear you. Yep.
I don't know. Maybe you want me to go in and go back out?
Yeah. You bringing it. Yeah. Do it again.
I mean, I can try that. I can log off and log back in if you want me to do it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see.
Yeah. All right, y'all. This brother is giving us great information. And I'm also sharing all of his links. The movie that he talked about, it is in the comments along with the link to everybody that's in it. I did watch that. And then also I sent the link to his website. They have over like 100 books, I believe. And then I also shared all the different sites because he teaches these courses online. I think he's back in, y'all. Hold on, the sun is out. Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So question was asking, how did you get to that knowledge though? Like, was it a book? Did you meet somebody and was curious about something they was doing? Or how did you get to this path to reactivate like your bloodline? Because it's in your line. How did you get there?
Right. So the way it started off, the way it started off is when we get to a certain point, around adolescence and older, and you start learning about the true story of America and learning about enslavement and so forth, you start having questions about how did we get to this point? What were we doing prior to that and so forth? You start having those questions. And it's not just a historical inquiry, it's an ancestral mandate by your ancestresses and ancestors pushing you to see true historically what took place. So I started looking as far as historical information, what we call historical information, to begin to, look at what happened. Now, at the time, looking back in the, 90s, early 90s and so forth, there was some work out, some books out, but then, there's certain things that hadn't been published yet. So going to Black bookstores or going to the library and so forth. But at some point, starting to look at the language and the ritual practices. It's one thing to study true story or history and learn that, Europeans invaded certain areas, they tried to take over and so forth. But instinctively and ancestrally, the Insamanfo, what we call the ancestresses and ancestors, directed me to say, well, no, you have to look at the religion to see how the religion was corrupted. If you don't look at how the religion was corrupted thousands of years ago, then everything else is not going to make sense. We know people invaded the continent, and we know that they, we got in wars and so forth when we went to the western part of the continent. Some of our people were engaged in, warfare amongst one another. So the Europeans were able to take advantage of that. They were never strong enough to come onto the continent and snatch us up and take us to the western. That never happened. They saw us, some of us engaged in war with one another. and then they purchased the prisoners of war and took the prisoners of war. Because what people need to understand, at the same time that the hundreds of years that there was an enslavement process going on, in West Africa and Central, there was also the Barbary post-slave trade, where black people were involved in Islam and so forth, along with enslaving white Christians from Europe and scattering them all over the Mediterranean for about 300 years. So Jesus was able to save white Christians, over 1 million white Christians, from being enslaved for 300 years. They were praying that Jesus would snatch up our black and Arab Muslims and sold across the Mediterranean. At the same time, black people were captives for war because we were infighting with one another. And, so this notion that they were so powerful that they would just confident and snatch it up never happened. So, but we know about the machinations politically. But when you study the ancestral religion, and that's what the Nsamanfo directed me to do, started looking in the cosmology of ancient communities, in the cosmology of, and so forth. They showed me that, the Akan people come from ancient Nubia, but so if you start looking at the Akan language dictionary, compare that with a hieroglyphic dictionary, you'll find the same words, same deities, same, concepts intact for thousands of years. Look in the Yoruba dictionary, Ebe dictionary, compare that with a hieroglyphic dictionary. Look at the deities as they're manifest in the Yoruba tradition, Akan tradition, and so forth, and Igbo tradition. Compare that with the ritual colors and functions of the deities of ancient Kemet, and you'll find the same divinities. And then if you look at the descriptive titles of the deity, not just the main titles of the deity, but the descriptive titles, quote unquote nicknames, you'll find those are sometimes primary names of the divinities in West Africa. So it was that kind of, back and forth. Meticulously going through information like that. And, but it always got it by going to the ancestral shrine, that they're directing the process, not just pulling anything, but they're directing me like, no, the Akan people come from ancient Khanid or Nubia. Okay, so can you show me where I can prove that? Then they direct me to some information, and I go and study that and verify, and then I can publish it. Then they'll direct me in another inquiry. I can go find it and verify it. Once I can find the proof of that, then I can publish. So for example, one of the books, if people know about ancient Kemet and they see the deity of wisdom, Tahuti, which they call folk and so forth, he's the great crane, the habui bird, the so-called ibis and so forth. He's the divinity of divine wisdom, and he's the spokesperson of the divine wisdom. One of his titles in ancient Kemet is Fa, F-A-N-T. So the god of wisdom is Fa. And so he's called Fa in Vodun. He's called Ifa in Yoruba. He's called Afa in Igbo. He also says Fa in Akan. So we wrote a whole book proving that cultural continuity from ancient times. So it can be verified linguistically, cosmologically, and culturally.
Okay, so you said Akan, which are, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so you said Akan in Ghana. So do you connect with those people who are Akan in Ghana today, or is that different than now?
No, so there, some of them are still practicing tradition. Some of them have been corrupted by Christianity and Islam and so forth. Some of them have mixed in, elements of the fake religions with the real thing. So it depends on who's who and what's going on. What was key for us, and of course, so when we talk about the Sufi tradition, for example, when our people were our ancestresses and ancestors taken from that region, and whether it's our family or whoever we are. If, say, it was the 1700s when we were snatched up, the manner in which we were practicing ancestral religion at that moment, that was fossilized in bones and blood. So it's that tradition that we passed down in North America intergenerationally. The pristine tradition that was practiced back then, that's what we passed down to Hoodoo, if we're Akan, or Juju if we were Yoruba, or Voodoo if we're Eve and Fon. So whatever happened since we left 300 years later, whatever invaded the continent and the kind of things that infected tradition, we were already gone at that point. So the way we were practicing in the 1700s, that tradition is supposed to be across North America. So if we're Akan people, we're calling the tradition Hoodoo, from the Akan term Undu. We're using the term Mojo, Chanche, Hinti, Haidan, Conquerors, Yama, Hakaru, you know who that individual was. He was an Akan, lieutenant and so forth. We're still using that terminology, the Akan word and so forth. That's the tradition that we inherited. So if we compare the Hoodoo tradition and the language and the words that are used in the Hoodoo tradition with the Akan terms, which we've done in our books, prove that it's the Akan tradition. Some people think Hoodoo is from the Congo and things like that, which is totally not. So we still maintain the practice. Now we can learn language from people on the continent, but they still speak fluently. There are certain things that they do with regard to kings and queens, certain ritual practices that they're engaged in. So we can learn these things from wherever our people are in the world. But as far as what we need to do to align ourselves with the order, that comes through our matric and our patric. Our matric clan ancestors who preserve the traditions for hundreds of years to this moment. Our patric clan ancestresses and ancestors who transmitted the tradition to our people for years up until this moment. And the deities that govern the matric clan and patric clan that we've inherited in our blood, the specific energy complex that we inherited directly by blood, we need to align with those divinities that are in our blood cells. Now, of course, there are people in the continent that we're related to who share the same, but the manner in which they express the tradition is going to be slightly different. When we come over here, certain things happen. For example, it started snowing. We never saw heaven. We never came to a place where all of a sudden the entire landscape was blanketed by white and all the leaves fell off the tree. There are certain plant life and mineral life and animal life that didn't exist on the continent that exists over here. So what are the taboo, ritual taboos, plant life, plant totems, animal totems, mineral totems that exist here that we incorporate in our bodies and use these plants for medicine? We had to learn what deities govern these plants that don't exist in the continent. There are no possums in Ghana, but we use possum bone divination. So we have to find out from the deity which one of you governs this animal we've never seen before. And they would show us which one of us governs it. The same in the Yoruba tradition. A Yoruba person being forced to North America, they're using the Yoruba term Ju or Juju, called the Yoruba tradition. If they saw a possum, they would have to ask the Orisha, which one of you govern this animal we've never seen before. And the Orisha would show them how to procure bones from the body of the animal and utilize the divination, and how they utilize the possum bones for divination. And no Yoruba person on the continent can teach a Juju man or Juju woman how to perform possum bone divination. We can't initiate them into possum bone divination. We can initiate them in the possum bone divination, but they can't initiate us in the possum bone divination. And it's the same thing with shells, the sea shells that we use from the ocean in South Carolina or Florida, the manner in which we're utilizing these shells to engage the evolutionary process. Nobody can initiate us into that expression but us. Now we can show them how to do it, but they can't show us how to do it. They can initiate me into hoodoo, which is our Akan tradition in North America, but I can show them what countries in North America have been doing for the past 300 years. But they can show us what they've been doing for the past 300 years. Because prior to 300 years, we were doing the same thing. So there are a lot of similarities, but there are slight variations. And the slight variations are key. It's like if you have 3 children, if everybody needs to get some protein or some, A or vitamin K and so forth. If you give everybody the same dinner, all the children the same dinner, and one of them is allergic to, squash, they break out and have to go to the hospital or something, they have to get the protein in a different way. Just because you're the same family, you have to recognize and acknowledge and honor the fact that they're different. So they can still be fed, but according to their nature. And there are slight differences. We engage this region of the earth body, and the plant life, animal life, and lunar life of this region of the earth body being incorporated into consumption, food, but also medicine. And being possessed by this energy, the unique expression of this region of the earth, then we have a slightly different expression of culture. It's very similar, just like lines in India. It's similar, but they're slightly different.
Right on, right on. So, brother, this is what we're going to do because I have like another interview. I was learning so much stuff. People are listening, but they're still saying they're getting more feedback from you in terms of, I personally think it could be where you're coming live from. I don't even think it's your computer. It could be your internet connection or where you are. Like in certain parts of my house, I cannot go live in because the internet don't work. Like it's weird. And it's like, well, so sometimes that happens too. So I think that could be the case with you because you look clear. But I know when you were talking, if you move forward, you would be clear. But if you move backwards, it would be like, like an echo, like you're far away, even though you just went like this. Right. So that's why I think it could be your internet and, but God, you have so much knowledge. As you were talking, I shared all your website. I shared where the film is. I think people, and then when you look at the screen, you can see the name, and I just feel like this is the kind of information that our people need to know. But I also think sometimes we struggle because this is not information you can just go get from somebody. This is not like walking into a church or, or maybe going to a mosque, and no disrespect to any of that. But I just think when you have ancient ancestral knowledge, is not going to be, you're not going to be able to put your hand on it immediately. Like, it's kind of like you have to, it's like being around elders and listening for those pearls of wisdom. They're just not going to give you all their pearls while you're sitting there for 15 minutes. It just kind of don't work that way. But I do believe that we have to keep having these conversations and giving out bits and pieces enough to make people want to go and do the deep knowledge. Like you were talking about Akan, been to Ghana a few times. I'm engaged to a Ghanaian man. I've done a bunch of stuff with a lot of Ghanaian people who come here and wanting to know more. And I know some Akan priestesses that are in Philly. And so didn't study a lot about it. I mean, I'm always respectful to spirit and culture, but I just feel like with us, you just got to break this down like you would culture. How they talk about sometimes basic things that make culture, language, food, religion, style, like all of that kind of stuff. I feel like we got to get that same information, and you have that information. And Sequestra say, please bring him back. That's what I'm leading to Sequestra because she really enjoyed you. I want to figure out how because we're going to wrap this up. When I go off the live, don't hang up because that's going to take us off the live because of the time. But I'm going to talk to you about 5 minutes after we get off live on something else. And then we'll figure that part out. So let me just wrap this up. Thank you for coming and sharing the knowledge that you have. I got to bring you back. I got to, because you have knowledge that we desperately need. A lot of us need, so that we can find our way to our, and I love the way you say our blood circle, like to reconnect with that. And I'm saying reconnect because it's in us, but some of us don't know that. We just don't, so. All right, family. So I will be back on in a couple of hours with Sister about our weekly, what's going on with Our Lives Matter. All right, peace. Okay, there he is.